Pleased to have right here the host and executive editor of the Special Report with Brett Baer. Brett Baer himself. Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
I'm pleased to have you here in Washington, D.C. on such a huge week, and you've got a book out, 3 days in January. We'll discuss this about Dwight Eisenhower when he left office and handed off to JFK. You are a fan of which team in the National Football League?
So now I'm a Redskins fan. I'm a recruited Redskins fan, but I grew up in Atlanta. So
Okay.
I still followed the Falcons. You know, I was the Steve Barkowski days.
Nice.
And, but I was Redskins all this season, fell short. Now I'm pulling for the Falcons.
So you are required. Are you required to be a Redskins fan when you're in Washington, D.C.?
No.
Or?
I wanted to, I have young kids.
Okay.
And I want to bring them to the game and kind of have the hometown.
How old are the kids?
9 and 6, Paul and Daniel.
Okay.
And so I wanted home teams kind of important to me growing up as a kid.
Sure.
Atlanta Braves, Dale Murphy.
Dale Murphy.
All those guys.
There's a name for you right there. I mean, Dale Murphy was one of the best players of his era, period.
He really was.
End of story.
Really was.
You know?
And those are the days when, there were a few hundred people behind home plate before the Braves became the Braves.
On the Superstation.
Yeah.
On
that's
TBS.
right.
Oh, gosh. I mean, Marshall Falk, who I work with on the NFL Network, he's a Braves fan, grew up in Louisiana because he was watching, Skip Carey and all those guys on the Superstation calling the Braves games.
I'm excited about the Falcons, though. I think they have a real shot.
They do. But Aaron Rodgers is
hot.
playing out of his mind right now.
8 games in a row.
What would this town be like if the Redskins were Super Bowl contenders and in a Sunday like this? Like, what if, let's put it this way, the NFC Championship game was here a day after the inauguration?
Oh
what would this town be like?
I don't even know. I don't know if we could handle it. Dan Snyder would be very happy.
Yes, he would.
I know he would be.
Yeah.
It's a football town. They get behind the Redskins.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Steve Hayes on my panel from the Weekly Standard.
Mm-hmm.
He is a diehard Packers fan.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going down to the game, and we have a bet that who wins, you got to wear the tie. So Falcons tie or the Packers tie.
We might have to see you in a Packers get-up in a way. On Monday on your show.
Yes.
Maybe that's what I should do, guys, because I just lost a bet. I bet my problem, Jerry Cantrell of Alice in Chains, and I lost to him at a fantasy football game. I had to dress up as a rocker for 3 straight hours with long hair.
You have to scale back the bet.
But you're just in a different world here in Washington, D.C.,
By the way, I love the tie thing. I love that. I don't do ties.
The tie, yeah. You don't
do ties.
Yeah, the Chris Law. You're not a tie guy. So I've got Brett Baer here from Fox News here on the Rich Eisen Show. We could not have been more elated to see your interview with the Dalai Lama.
Oh, yes.
Brett. And for those who did not, can we play the actual interview with the Dalai Lama?
Absolutely.
That Brett Baer using any real estate with the Tibetan leader to ask him this question.
Last thing. Have you ever seen the movie Caddyshack?
What?
Caddyshack, the movie? You don't know the movie?
I don't.
The part about the Dalai Lama? Have you ever played golf?
No.
You're not a big hitter?
Then Batman.
But not golf?
No.
There's a classic movie called Caddyshack where they talk about the Dalai Lama.
I see.
I had to ask you about it.
I don't know.
Well, thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Now, backstory.
Walk me through this, please.
Okay.
Right.
Now, this is
There was like 4 follow-ups there.
Yes,
That was
oh my
fantastic.
God. This is like
great.
a 20-minute interview. We've talked about China. We've talked about inner peace. We've talked about politics around the world.
Yeah.
So at the end, I'm thinking, I played golf in college. Obviously, I watched Caddyshack a million times, as everybody has. I said, can I let this go? Can I not ask the question? So then I asked the question, and then I'm like, should I follow up? I think I should. And then I cut myself short before I said, do you say gunga la gunga? I mean, that really would have gone down a hill, I think. And personally, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I think he's seen Caddyshack. I mean, if I had to press him again, I think he's seen it.
Well, I mean, did you workshop that with anybody else at Fox News? You just let that one...
Yeah, that snuck in there at the last minute.
did any of the Dalai Lama's handlers ask you?
They
what?
had no clue. They were like, "Oh, it was a great interview." And the best part was that the PGA that weekend was on a rain delay because I forget what tournament they were at.
Yeah.
I know some of those guys. I've played in the AT&T before, and I get these texts like, "Oh my gosh." And they sent the clip that we had sent out to everybody who was on a rain delay.
Yeah.
And they were saying, "We can't believe you asked that."
It's unbelievable.
You talk about China, Tibet, all these important topics, and
sure.
that's what gets picked up
Oh,
by
big time.
everybody.
So you're not a big hitter, correct?
You're not a big hitter?
He's like badminton.
Way to go, Brett. I mean, when you get your shot, you got to take your
Big
shot.
moments in a career.
Now, your book, 3 Days in January, Dwight Eisenhower's Final Mission, obviously it's about a transition period, which similar, obviously, we're to a time that we're going through right now. But did you go, because Eisenhower, we all know there's the famous Eisenhower tree.
Yeah.
And there are many stories about his golfing acumen. Did you get any stories about that?
That is how this book starts, in that I found this topic because I'm a golfer. I said that I got the holy grail of golf invites to play at Augusta National. And I go down there, and I'm really psyched going down Magnolia Lane. And I get to the clubhouse, and they say, "You're staying in the Eisenhower cabin." And I'm all jacked up, and I pour myself a glass of wine or two, and I walk around the Eisenhower cabin. And I'm thinking, I cover politics, I cover Washington, and I don't really know about the presidency of Dwight D. Eisenhower. I know General Eisenhower. So I leave Augusta, and I go to the Eisenhower Library soon thereafter in Abilene, Kansas. And I talked to the folks there, and they said, this transition period, the farewell address, is something that has not been really explored. And while I'm there, they actually pull out the address, the actual address that I put gloves on, and there's all these scribble marks from Eisenhower. On January 17th, 1961, he delivers this address that's kind of a warning to Kennedy, but a blueprint for the country. And you could read that address today, Rich, and it is still relevant. So I used that 3 days to kind of bounce back and introduce General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, to our generation and younger.
Sure. And that's interesting. And it's born out of you just like being in the Eisenhower cabin.
Yeah, it was like the spirit of
at
Ike.
Augusta National.
So here, this is how much of a golf nerd I
Okay,
am.
you got your phone out right now. What do you got?
This is what I was listening to. That's my ringtone.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Brett Baer approaching the Masters.
A tradition unlike any other.
Yeah.
I'm not around right now to take your call.
So
Are you
that's how much-
serious?
I
People
swear,
call
that's-
Brett Baer,
That's what they hear.
and that's what you hear.
That's what you hear.
Now, is Fox okay with that? I mean, because that's a
CBS product.
or is CBS okay?
Yeah,
with
who
that?
knows? Don't tell
You
me.
may have just committed some sort of a violation.
I bought the ringtone. I don't know.
Of some
But
sort.
let me tell you a quick story about Eisenhower. So his best friend is Arnie
That's great.
Palmer.
Yeah, of course.
Arnold Palmer.
Yeah.
And they're great friends. And I didn't put this in the book, but I talked to a lot of people who said that he followed everything. And at the end of his life, Eisenhower's had 6 heart attacks at the end of his life.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and he was not a healthy guy at the end. He leaves office, and he is following Arnold Palmer's career. And the doctors come to him and say, by the way, he changed back to General Eisenhower. You can't watch Arnold Palmer play any more tournaments because your blood pressure goes up and your heart rate goes up when he's in contention. And he turns to them and says, you know what? I'm an old man. And if I want to watch Arnie Palmer win, I'm going to watch Arnie Palmer win. And soon, he watched golf. He was a great golf fanatic.
Yeah. And Palmer, I mean, just passing away recently, just hearing the story that his grandson told at the memorial, that he spoke to him, called him up one day. He would always say, where are you? He would always say that to his grandson. Where are you? And his grandson said he tried that with him once. Called him up. Hey, Grandpa, where are you? Oh, I'm in the Oval Office right now. He goes, why are you answering the phone? He goes, well, to talk to you. And just talking about that, that's what it meant to him. And I, forget whose Oval Office he was actually in. but just that story just touched me about how what really things meant to Arnold Palmer and how monumental a figure he was in a sports world, as well as being in a town like this.
Yeah. It's an amazing town. There's a lot of appreciation for sports here. But obviously the biggest sport this week is the swearing in of the 45th president of the United States.
Right.
So that's going to be something.
Yeah. And then how do you see it in this town right now? I mean, how do you feel this town is compared to other inaugurations that you've been around for?
Well, it's completely different. It's unique. All the run up to it is unique. I mean, the campaign from the escalator down in June 2015 in Trump Tower to our first debate in Ohio and all the debates since the general election, and now you have this moment. And for the first couple of weeks, Rich, I mean, I'll be honest, people here in D.C., their heads were exploding. They couldn't get their heads around it. Tomorrow it will be real, and they'll have to figure out how to work with this new administration.
Whenever you tweet about sports, do you get people saying stick to politics?
Yeah.
You do?
Sometimes.
Because
I'd rather tweet about sports.
Anytime I put anything remotely with a tinge of politics on my Twitter.
Stick to sports?
Every time.
Oh, yeah. Twitter's a dark place sometimes.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you. Good luck with your book.
Thanks for having me.
3 days in January. Brett Baer, check it out. Dwight Eisenhower's Final Mission, right here on the Rich Eisen Show.
This one's signed to you.
Awesome. I will take that and accept it, and we'll put it in our show studio.
Fantastic.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Back in Los Angeles. Thanks for coming in. Brett Baer right here. George Will still to come. Same with Chuck Todd. We're fair and balanced here on the Rich Eisen Show as well.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.